Daddy, we come to you this morning again and just thank you for your gratitude, for your grace, for your faithfulness, Lord, to call us to be a part of what is dearest to your heart. Redemption of the lost, the glorification of your Son, and be a part of giving the proper image of who you are. Such a privilege. And at many times we only focus on the price that we end up paying, but we forget so oftentimes the great privilege of serving you. And so, Lord, we come to you this morning just in gratitude to be able to meet together as your children, and we pray that you would knit our hearts and minds together. We pray that you would help us to be encouraged, to be authentic with our questions and with our concerns this morning. And Lord, may you address each one, not so much Shay and I to talk about the issues that are involved, but Lord, we pray for your wisdom. We pray for your leadership during this time, and may you be honored in what your children desire to do out of obedience and following you this morning. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I think it may be helpful for us this morning, for James and I, just to share a little bit about what's been going on in our lives throughout this week. So I'll start, and then you can follow up.
I was thinking the exact same thing. We didn't even talk about that, but I was thinking before, I need to talk to Shay before we get started. I think we should do something a little different, and I didn't get to actually say it. Like,
it's because we don't have hair getting in the way.
That's right. It's a better link, right?
So last week, honestly, I've been most excited I've been about ministry in a long time. Just the grind of church planting, especially bivocational, it's wearing and it's tiring. And so was really excited and using where I thought I was gifted in a lot of ways, and kind of seeing what things may look like. Nothing happened, nothing changed, no event took place. And then this week, just feeling beat up, worn down, discouraged in a lot of ways. And like I said, there was nothing that happened. There was no conversation. There was nothing that took place. It was just kind of out of the blue feeling that way. And then I got a text from James Tuesday or Wednesday this week. And so you want to share your...
Yeah, actually, I'll read you what I sent to the elders, just because I think it's accurate. I just said, the guys, one thing I recognize is that there's no such thing as Lone Ranger Christianity, and so that when I recognize things that are going on in my heart and life, I just don't try to process them myself. Like, I'm reaching out to people that I know that will be praying for me and will lock shields with me in that spiritual fight, right? And so I reached out to the elders, and I just said this. I said, brothers, I just wanted to come to you simply to ask your prayers for me today. I have recognized in my heart a spirit of discouragement, frustration, and resentment. I said, but I really don't have any place or reason to place these feelings or to have any reason to think that they exist. Nonetheless, they are there. I understand and recognize that these feelings are an attack from the accuser, and I humbly ask that you would lock shields with me as I claim the promises of Christ and preach the good news of the gospel to my own heart and life today. And that's just what I sent to the guys. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because then Shay hit me back. He says, man, you've been reading my mail. That's exactly where I'm at. I think really is what a lot of our folks could probably mimic, or at least suggest some of the same things. What are some things that you've been hearing from people just as they've been processing and walking with the Lord?
I haven't heard anything directly, but just gotten kind of the sense of what maybe was enthusiasm now is a little bit more questioning about things, which is okay. And that's fine, but we just need to be able to process through those things and kind of talk through those. We've also experienced, my wife has some chronic health problems, and I had really not been dealing with a lot of those, and has dealt with a lot of them in the past couple of weeks as well. And actually is not here today because was up all night dealing with some of the stuff that she deals with. And so is trying to get some rest this morning. And so we just, I think, feeling in general, just some spiritual attack and some discouragement in that, which is not uncommon in ministry, to have times of being very down. But just thought we'd share that kind of that's where we were coming out of. And not really there today. Like, I'm not down or feeling too beat up today, other than just physically tired. But
Yeah, and it seems across the board, I've been hearing that from a lot of folks, just their own personal struggles, feeling. I think there's a conversation maybe have at a different time, how to properly recognize and how to process feelings, because a lot of times we'll experience a feeling of anger or frustration or resentment, and sometimes we think our feelings are legitimate rather than understanding where those feelings attached to, where are they coming from. One of the easiest ways to recognize a spiritual attack coming from the accuser is when you have no place to hang that feeling to. Like there's nothing that legitimately driving an event that's legitimately driving that. But almost always those feelings come in either before or after an event and try to attach themselves to something that just happened, or more importantly, attach themselves to someone. Like many of you have been married, a lot of times you can sense a spirit of just annoyance with your spouse. Right? And you're like, well, that's every day. But sometimes they deserve it, right? Because they're hard to live with. But other times that annoyance comes up and you're like, there's nothing driving that. You just, all of a sudden, you're annoyed. So that just helps you recognize kind of the process of those attacks. I think a portion of scripture that I've been kind of spending time in that has been encouraging is Psalm 107 in verse 23. It says, they that go down in ships and do business in great waters, these see the works of the Lord and his wonders in the deep. He gives this analogy that it's only those that launch out into the deep, that do business in deep waters, that see the amazing miracles and mights and wonders of the Lord. A lot of times we would prefer fishing off the dock, but the great wonders of the Lord are out in deep waters. And the instability, the all that comes with fishing in deep waters. If you ever watched The Deadliest Catch or seen some of those kind of documentaries, is indicative to the Christian life when we launch out into something that is a great endeavor, that's unexpected, that is unknown territory, if you will. You're almost guaranteed to experience a multitude of these things. And I just think more and more as we've gone through this, the opposition and discouragement, just even the own spiritual battle that's going on with me or my family, physically or emotionally, is indicative to us being in deep waters, not necessarily going against the Lord, because any direction that you go to Lord, usually things get worse before they get better. So if that's you guys, we just wanted, before we started this, just to kind of encourage you that one, you're not alone, two, that the struggle is common and part of the process, and to kind of help you recognize that you have a very real adversary against you. And I know that's something that the reason why our elders are fasting and praying every day is because of that. We know that this thing will not go forward. If God wants it to go forward, it's not going to go forward unopposed, and that Satan would like to do nothing else than destroy it completely, because he likes it when churches don't work together. He likes it when people, Christians, fight against each other, right? And how many times have we seen that? Like that is nothing that more quickly dishonors the name of the Lord when churches are shooting at each other. And then, the innocent almost always get hurt as a result of it. But anyway, just as a thought process as you guys are working through things.
And all that's not to say that it's, we're not trying to say it's not okay to have questions and bring up questions and have concerns. I mean, those are all legitimate. But at the same time, just kind of knowing where we've been, if you're experiencing something similar, we think that there's some serious spiritual attack that's going on in that.
Yeah, so we ask you guys to pray for clarity and pray for strength and pray for wisdom through it all, through this process, because I think the next couple of weeks are going to be extremely important for us.
Yeah. So, if we didn't want questions, we wouldn't have this. It'd be an easy way to not have questions. Right? So we didn't get up. Last time we had quite a few questions. This time we only had a couple of questions. One's kind of logistic.
Should we open up to the floor?
But yeah, I think we want to open up to the floor as well. And so if you didn't ask a question over the Google Doc, you can still ask questions. And so anybody come in today with questions they wanted to ask?
The pause is okay.
I'll be first.
Thanks, Debbie. Appreciate it.
Okay, because I'm so new to just even coming to Mosaic, there are a lot of things that I just don't know because I haven't taken the time to ask, so don't shoot me yet. But anyways, there are two entities here. They're both registered churches and have been in process for a while. Okay, now you have, and I'm not sure, but I think you're both under the Southern Baptist denomination theological auspices.
We're not under anybody, but yes, we
Okay.
do align with them. Yeah.
You're kind of, okay. Well, there's going to be a point where somebody says, does this theological approach at the Church of Winchester and the one at Mosaic, are they aligned? And are they written down somewhere so you can read through them? Okay. And do both churches have elders in place already?
Yes.
Are there rules about how long those elders serve?
For us, yes.
Yeah, we do too, but right now we don't have a time limit on the serve.
And
And
so by his implication is that you do have a time limit on those? That's what I
We do.
interpret.
We do.
Yes. Okay.
We have our elders, for the first time that they serve as an elder, serve for 1 year. And a lot of that is for them, self-discovery and compatibility issues. You have elders that have the same convictions, same direction, same creed, same philosophy, but are not really compatible. They don't really click together well. And part of that is essential for good team dynamics. And so part of it is to see how they fit with the elder team, and then part of it too is to see how they fit with the responsibilities of carrying that. And so that, if you want to call it a probationary year, you could call it that, but just the first year, and then we talk to them and see where they're at with the process and see where they're at in that role and see if it's a good fit for them to continue to move forward or have that extra stage left and they can finish their term and be done with that. And then they can be nominated to serve a regular full term.
Yeah, and for statement of faith, I think we both adhere to the Baptist Faith and Message 2000.
Okay.
And so that would be where you could go and look that up, and it's pretty comprehensive.
So you get into church polity issues, that's a church polity issue. Doctrine should inform church polity, but just to be honest with you, church polity is God doesn't give it to you black and white of how to run a church.
No.
And so you just have to decide and seek wisdom and lay things out well in order to properly govern and care for God's people correctly.
I just wondered how you were going to bring
those together
from two different groups.
Sure.
Yeah, so what we've talked about doing is we bring the worship piece together as an easy piece, and it's probably the most important piece. For your sake and concern, a lot of folks don't really care about our Constitution or bylaws. I would seriously almost gamble that almost no one in here has read through every bit of our Constitution and bylaws. Okay. I'm sure you've seen them, but you read through every one. People don't really care much about that stuff. Maybe you have, but people really care about the things that like Sunday morning, like the service and things of that nature. So those are the most important things, are the easiest things to work through. There are some legal aspects that have to be worked through. So what we've talked about is if the churches vote to go through with the merger, that will immediately implement that worship piece and join together in the parts that matter most. But the legal aspect and some of those governing aspects will take longer to put together, because like our church constitution and bylaws is a legal identity, a part of our nonprofit corporation status with the state of Virginia. So those things will have to be worked in after the vote. And most likely what we'll do is we'll get the elders together, we'll take both governing documents, talk about them. I know a lot of our stuff we had worked well for us when we started, but may not be where we're at now, or may not be serve us well in the future. So we want to, as far as how we do things, I'm sure it'd be the same thing for you guys. So what we would do is get the elders together. Okay, now where are we at now? What is it that we need to move forward? And then we would lay those things out. And part of that is like we talked about with the OMRAMP process throughout the summer, is that we would be laying down our mission, vision, core value. You guys are already getting the vision messages, right? We're already doing that part. We'll continue with that, and then through our preaching time, and then as well towards the end of that time, we would have all those documents finished and ready to present as we do a new covenant membership for the new church.
Yes, ma'am.
What constitutes a majority as far as the vote goes?
Like, both of us, neither one of us have anything in the bylaws about a merger. Like, that's not there. And so both
Most
of
churches
us.
don't do that. That's why you don't want.
Yeah, most churches don't have that in their bylaws. It's not something they thought through when they made the bylaws. So I think for both of us, we're looking at a simple majority on that.
So 51?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do not expect it to be that at all. And I guess it'd be indicative of how we brought our elders and brought our vision team together. If we wouldn't have had complete unity and unanimous enthusiasm about moving forward, we wouldn't even brought this to the church. Like this has been over 6 months of laboring and praying, going through this in every way possible.
Really 4 to 5 years.
5 years for you and I, but like solid 6 months for our elders and stuff working through this, to really seek that, to really parse that out. And one of the things I know we do with our leadership team at Mosaic, we can pretty much tell that if the way our leaders approach an issue and the way they process things will be pretty indicative of how the church will also process those same things. And so that's why we don't push things forward that we don't have consensus on. Like, we try to avoid those things, because if we can't get consensus with the leaders, we're not going to get consensus in the church. But I have never in 5 years had a time when the leaders were completely on board with something unanimously and then had a lack of consensus in the church. It's never happened. So I would be shocked if that was to be the case with the vote for Mosaic, that as leaders present something that the church doesn't agree with. I just don't think that'd be the case. I think I would be shocked if we're under 80% approval.
In the event that there was like a 55-45 split, how would you handle that?
So we have a process. It's a really good question. There's a process in what we would ask people to do. Is over the summer we would walk through on Sunday mornings we would walk through what essentially would become a membership class type material. So we'd walk through the mission, the vision, the core values. This is who we are. This is how we function as a church. I'm asking everyone from the church at Winchester, if you're a member, to stay through that process.
Absolutely. Same thing for Mosaic, because that's huge.
Yeah, and so at the end of that process, we would recovenant together as far as membership. That's an on-ramp for people that would say, yes, this is my church. It's also an off-ramp for people who say this isn't my church.
And we have a lot of folks that are like faithful attenders in the church that just haven't gone through the membership class yet, but their heart is for Mosaic. And this is their time to get fully on board with where we're headed. It would be on that on-ramp process. And then, like I said, we just allow those folks as they see clearly a very clear direction of where the church is headed. If that's not something that you're about, then honestly, I would tell folks that, great, tell us what it is that you want, and we'll partner with you to find that church. Because there's plenty of other places that we can direct you to.
Yeah. A question I would throw out as we approach the vote, this is something we all have to be asking. How much have we labored in prayer and fasting in our decision, right? And so there's a lot of things we can base a decision on. And I think those of you that know me know, I'm like manipulating people to see my point of view is not really my thing. But I think this is a legitimate question, so it's not an attempt at manipulation. Is if we're basing the vote on things, but we're not praying and fasting over that decision, what are we basing it on? Are we basing it on what makes us feel comfortable, likes and dislikes, preferences? Because I don't know, and I don't know what quiet time looks like individually for everybody. So this isn't an accusation; it's just a question. If I'm basing the decision, but I haven't really labored in praying and fasting over it, then I'm basing it on me as opposed on what I feel like God is doing. Obviously, the elder teams feel like this is where God is leading. We wouldn't have brought it before the churches otherwise. If we felt like, there's been this conversation, I said 4 or 5 years. James and I have brought this conversation up between the two of us.
No less than 4 times, yeah.
At least once a year over the last 4 or 5 years. And every time we felt like, no, we shouldn't move forward. And so it didn't go forward at that time. This past year, we said we had both had other elders in place, so we said, let's take it to our elders. Those elders spent time praying, fasting, discussing, working through a lot of that information, just the details, like the theology, the compatibility, all of these kind of questions that came up, working through those. And what we found as we worked through it, there were things, Jonathan shared last time, he's working this morning, so he's not able to be here, but he wasn't on board right away.
Same thing with Jay. He was very leery.
Yeah, and so then I wasn't on board right away. And Joe can confirm that. He's downstairs helping clean up, but Joe can confirm that I was like, hey, I'm bringing this to you guys. I'm not sure. And so that was the beauty of having other elders to go to, because it wasn't just my decision, right? Yeah. And so brought it to, and then as we started, our elder team meets every once a week. It's kind of changed because Jonathan has a rotating schedule, but we meet in the mornings one day a week, and we just pray together as an elder team. And so as we were praying about it, I started being more and more comfortable, I guess, with the idea, more at peace with the idea, more than I ever had in the past. And Jonathan still wasn't, it wasn't like a flat out no, it was just like, I'm not sure. I don't know if this is the best thing. And then as we met together, we brought all the families together and met together one night, and we listed out what are the pros and cons. What we found was everything that was on the cons side of the list really boiled down to personal preferences for us. The things that are on the pro side of the list dealt with mission,
kingdom, impact, and that I think. So to understand the preference, it's not saying that our preferences. We go to churches because we like the way church is done there. Sure. Right. There's nothing wrong with that. Why would you go to church that you didn't like the way things were done there? You just wouldn't do that, right? So it's not like necessarily anything wrong with that. Or maybe you guys are at Mosaic and you still think that way, but. That's natural part of it, right? And I think it's not necessarily wrong with that, but sure. Something has to be bigger than your preferences. And I think when this thing really got traction is when Shay and I first of all said, clearly we're lead pastors, and so in order to be a lead pastor, you're not ambivalent about anything. Like, you have a viewpoint on virtually almost everything. Like, if you asked us personally, we would tell you. We started to realize that our understanding our convictions differences than our preferences, and that's the first thing we had to lay at the table, is that we're going to that may mean that some of my preferences change. And so I think if you understand why preferences should be put on the offering table, that it helps, right? And so I think that what really helped us is understand that we started listing things out. It was really this makes us more comfortable to stay the way we are, but this will make us more effective. And it's not going to be comfortable at all, but Winchester will be different as a result of it. Mm-hmm. And so we're willing to go through the pain of having our preferences called out or questioned to see that type of impact. So I think and what we did, I think is really a good model for everyone, is that those like Jonathan and Jay and stuff that had questions about the process. Perfect example, and I think I can speak for Jonathan, is the reason why Jonathan was a little hesitant is because he just didn't know me very well. And so to Jonathan's credit, what did he do? He asked me out for coffee, we sat down, had breakfast, we had some great conversations. He really wanted to process that and understand that in order for these things to work out, I just needed time. We just needed time together. And the more time we got to spend together, the better things were. And that was great, because I spent a lot of time with Shay, but I really didn't know his elders very much. Joe I did, because I worked with Joe a lot. But, so that was a concern for me, and just sitting down and working through that. And like with Drew, I don't know where did I just see Drew run around somewhere?
He's helping clean up, I think.
Yeah, man. And I'm really, I got a bromance going on with Drew. Man, that guy is brilliant. That guy is awesome. The more I spend time with him, the more I really like him. I'm really digging that guy. But at first, it was like, Drew and I aren't exactly the same type of personalities, you know what I mean? But it was like, start leaning into him. Man, he's got some really good stuff. I've been listening to his podcast. By the way, you guys should be listening to those podcasts. They are awesome.
Courageous Theology.
Courageous Theology.
Yeah.
# Courageous Theology. How you do it? Millennials. Is that how you're supposed to work? I don't know. Just really good stuff. The more I got to know him, the more I got excited about serving with him. You know, that's just part of the process is leaning into it. And figuring that out. And so I think, yeah, like it's the same thing I've told our folks, that if some aspect, if you're hesitant about it, I would say this. Understand that. What have you done to address the hesitation? How much time in prayer are you spending? Have you fasted over it? Who are you talking to? Not like who are you talking to about it. Like, talk to people that are in the know. Talk to your elders about it. Spend time with them. And then deal with it. But ultimately, there's a great, now this sounds bad because I'm the guy, but this is something that I've done throughout my Christian life, and there's great protection in it. You know, obey them that have rule over you, for they watch for your souls. Right? I've learned when I first got saved that if I submitted to God's authority that he put in my life, that, man, things just worked better for me. And that I didn't understand some things, but God gave me authority so that they would protect me and see things that I didn't. You know what I mean? The reason why we have elders is to watch for the church, to care for the church. And so I encourage everyone that even if you're doubtful about it, if you're like not sure, always side with authority. Like, I'm going to defer to authority because they've clearly have gone deep into this thing and I haven't. You know, I want my questions addressed, but in the end, when it comes between a gap between where I'm at and where they are, I'm going to defer and submit to authority, right? Because I do this at work all the time, you know, because I have people above me all the time. And I call submission as the divine art of ducking so God can hit authority. That if I fight authority, but it's really true, it really is. If I just submit, if I stand against that authority, then if God comes with judgment and chastisement, guess who gets hit? I do. But if I'll just submit to that process and trust God to work through that, man, it always works out better for me. So I think a big part of that is just a spirit of submission, trusting the Lord through the process, and then having those questions answered authentically as we work through it. But in understanding too, it's not like you're stuck in this. Well, I'm not sure about this. There's an exit ramp coming. And no one's gonna, if you decide at the end of that time, this is the coolest thing. You get to try this thing out for months, right? No obligation, no commitment to buy. You just get to try it, drag it around, beat it up, bang it up. And if you don't like it, drop it back off at the lot. This is a great vehicle, you know, and go to a new vehicle. I mean, really, there's zero risk involved. Really, you think about that, and maybe that helps your perspective, but it really isn't like, well, if we commit to this thing and I don't like it down the road, what am I going to do? We are going to help you and partner with you to find out exactly where God wants you, and do that in a spirit of cooperation, compassion, and grace, right? Because that's what we do. We told people all the time when they come to Mosaic, you may be here for 3 years, 3 months, 30 years, it doesn't matter. What we will do is love you passionately while you're here. And then as you go to wherever it is you're going to go, we're going to be excited about that. Especially you go to a church that we really like and we're excited about them doing work for Jesus. Like, go to that church. And, you know, I've recommended churches all the time in Winchester for people to try out. So I'm babbling, so I'm going to stop. But that's just part of the working through that process.
Yeah, and I mean the feedback that we've received as an elder team, the feedback I think you guys have received has been
overwhelmingly supportive.
Yeah, very, very positive. Even those who have questions, it's still been positive. And so if it ended up being a 55-45 kind of thing, I would have been blindsided by that, which speaks to bigger issues in our church.
Like, if that happened, I would really question my leadership, like in our leadership as leaders. Like, how could we have missed this?
Yeah.
Or knowing me the way I do, if that was to happen, I would immediately question how I failed the church somehow not to properly communicate and cast vision. Like, somehow it's my fault. Because I don't think this is God's fault. I do think this is God's direction. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it. Like, somehow I failed the church in significant ways. For people not to see that. Yeah. But I have yet had any conversation with anyone that'll spend time with me and have a conversation about it that we were able to address their questions, and then really for them to get excited. I mean, man, how many guys were here for like Easter, right? Like, pretty cool, right? Yeah. Yeah, I don't want that at all ever again. I don't ever want to see anything like that. Okay. You know, I would say that was a good appetizer for what God wants to do. Now, if people didn't like that appetizer, then maybe this might not work out well for you. But I think it was a pretty good appetizer. Just how everybody working together, loving each other well. It was a cool day. We didn't do everything perfect. Some things we can improve on for sure. But man, that was a cool day. I think it's just, and that's what we prayed that God would do. That is to give us a foretaste of what He was wanting to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we've talked about this a little bit, but one of the questions is, knowing that people will probably leave from both congregations, in your mind, what would be the acceptable number of people leaving and still justify a merger? And I think that goes back to what we're asking both memberships to do: stick through that vision process, and then if there's the off ramp, based on, hey, here's my experience, it's your experience. People are going to leave the church at Winchester and Mosaic anyway.
If we do nothing, we'll still lose people.
Yeah, and I mean, there's people who you kind of know when they come in, like, yeah, they're probably not going to be here very long, because you know that we're not for them. When I say for them, like, that we're not their thing. And then there's people you develop close relationships with. Neither one of us, I think, would look at anybody in our churches and say, well, they're expendable. If they left, no big deal. I mean, because we love the people in our churches. I mean, so that's not our how we think. We believe that we're moving in what makes both churches stronger. In that, both of us will have to give up things, adapt to things, change things in the way we do them. We've already talked about as far as even as just like preaching style of the two of us coming saying, all right, here's a structure that we're going to kind of work with, and we're going to commit to saying, hey, when we're each of us preaching, we're going to kind of develop the sermon with this structure, so there's some consistency in the style and type of sermon that would be coming out.
And that's going to be a challenge, because even just doing this series together, the way Shay processes truth and the way I process truth, completely different, right? Like, I am like heavy on outline and structure, and Shay comes up with these amazingly poignant thoughts and process, but like my outline messages are like color-coded, like different font, different colors, different codes, like it all matters, right? Shay is just kind of like this, like thoughts on paper, just thrown out. I don't know how it works for him. It's great stuff.
I'm not an outline guy.
Yeah, but we had a conversation like, hey, we need to learn together what this is like. So we know that's probably going to be a growth point for both of us to grow into that. But I'm excited about that. You know,
do your styles really need to change, or will that be an enhancement for this body of believers?
I would say yes and yes. I would say yes and yes. Derek.
Can I speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, because you know us better. I mean, you know us better than everybody.
But also, you guys worked together on last week's message, right?
We worked together on kind of the basic outline of it.
So it would have been a good example of how you guys would have worked together anyways. Because I still felt very much Shay, but I heard a few phrases and I was like, that was James. And I'm sure James is not going to give, like, you guys are just very different personalities too, and I don't think their preaching styles themselves would change. It's more of how they give it would become a little bit more together.
Yeah. Well, preaching's like anything else. If you're not working to get better at it, you're probably getting worse at it. I mean, that's the case of anything we do. And so in that, there's things that I think I do very well in communication. Honestly, I think I do better than James does in communication. And there's things that James does that I think he does better than I do in communication. So it's that process of learning from each other and structuring that.
Here's the problem in our churches the way we are. When I'm the best preacher in the room, because that's why I'm there, like, I have to go outside of that reality to find out and to learn a lot, right? Like, I mean, so one of the things personally, I mean, I'm just talking personally that I'm excited about. I would tell anybody from Church of Winchester, if you see things in my life that maybe you're concerned about or that you don't like or maybe a little bit annoying, like, because we all have them, right? I can guarantee you a couple things. In 2 years from now, if this thing goes forward, I'm not going to be the same man. And I'm excited about that. The way I preach now and the way I'll preach in 2 or 3 years will be different. So it will change. Because that's the whole point of God working in and through our lives, to change us from glory to glory, even as unto the glory of the Lord. Like, the whole point is to constantly be changing to look more like Jesus, right? So I am going to look different. And I would tell people that in Mosaic, if they don't like the way Shay's dry humor plays off sometimes, or something like, well, you know, I more prefer your type of preaching, like, hold on. Once in a while, it's 3 years from now, Shay's not going to be the same guy, right? He'll be a different man. And we're both very excited about that. So it isn't about us keeping the same. I think what we're endeavoring to do personally is what we're asking everybody to do is like, look forward to is that, no, our churches won't be the same, and that is a very good thing. Like, that's the point. Like, if people wanted to, the reality is change is inevitable. So the idea of a church just wanting to stay the same, they've already guaranteed that they're going to become ineffective. Like, they are marginalizing their effectiveness continuously.
You repeat what you just said, I'm sorry.
When a church fights not to change and to hold on to things that were once very effective and they think they're great and they won't let go of those things, you mark it down progressively, incrementally, that church loses relevancy. And Winchester's full of them.
And Tom Rayner's done a ton of research on this that you can find.
Yeah, so part of it is, we have to change. The good thing is we're looking forward to the best, becoming not a different preacher or a different pastor, but the best version of myself. You know?
Yeah.
And I just do better when we're working together, man. I just do better. He makes me better.
Yeah, and I think what Dara was just saying, I mean, there's things that were, and when we say we work together, now you got to realize James has been working nights. I'm a teacher, I work days. Our working together has been emailing back and forth, because that's the only option right now.
Talking on the phone.
And so we didn't like sit down and structure it out. So when you listen to them, if you listen to both of them from this past week, they're still very different. But over time, as we were able to work together more and more, I think you'll kind of get the best of both people in that.
And to go back to the analogy thing of a marriage, right? I mean, when people first get married, they don't work well together. They love each other, but it's still a lot of friction, kind of awkwardness involved. Now, those same two people, like, I know a lot of people at Church of Winchester are kind of younger than some of our folks, but Mary and I just hit our 20 years. And next month we go to Jamaica for 2 weeks for our wedding anniversary. Yeah, so we're going to Jamaica for 2 weeks. Never done that before. So we're really excited about that. It'll be the first foreign trip that I've ever taken that.
It's been for fun.
Yeah. Like, I'm not sure what to do with that. Like, I had to get a normal passport. What do people do with that? Like a normal, like, tourist passport. I'm like,
You
what
just
is
leave
this?
it in there until you can afford the next trip in a couple of years. Renew it again.
Yeah. So I have like 4 books of passports that are filled out that are done, right? I have 2 active personal work passports, but I have a personal, so I don't know. I'm excited about it. But I realized that I was starting to think about that man, we first get married, who I am now and who I was then. Man, she's rubbed off in ways that I can't even fully understand where she picks up and where I left off sometimes. You know, still different people, but man, I am not the same person because the Lord has used her to change me in significant ways. And so I think what you'll find is, I mean, there'll always be a difference between Shay and I, but I think as we partner together more and more, that unity and precision and direction will become clear. It'll be harder to fight for at first, but in a couple years, I think it'll be really.
Yeah, and I think that'll be true in all of our ministries. Joyce and Mary and I met this week and just said, what's Sunday morning children's ministry going to look like? Where we're strong is the preschool, because we got a lot of nursery to preschool kids. And we don't have anything for elementary schools on Sunday morning. We have a Sunday evening thing. We don't have anything on Sunday morning, and that's really a manpower thing, because we have to run 3 programs before the kid ever gets to school. We're running 3 separate programs for that. So that's consuming all of our resources, people resources, being able to do that. So we've got, Joyce has done a good job of developing curriculums and getting those things moving, all that. Mosaic's doing a really good job on Sunday morning with the elementary school age kids and has quite a few in that. And so we're able to kind of pair those things up. So you're going to get the best of what both ministries are doing, and I think it'll make that ministry stronger and better, particularly for guests who come in who are wanting something for their kids. And so, hey, here's a very clear avenue of something for your kids. And so if you kind of apply that same idea across the board of looking, there's things that both have to give up, but that makes both better as a process. And so going back to the original question of what's a acceptable number, my, I guess, anticipation would be that if we commit to say, hey, we're going to work together to make this thing strong, then we won't see a lot of that.
Yeah, I would even say, when you say acceptable, I don't think any of it acceptable. I'm not willing to accept anyone leaving our church over this merger. Not a single family.
That's ridiculous, James.
Well, let me walk you through that. It is, no.
That's opposite of what you said earlier about
No.
there's an exit right now.
I mean, right now, as a result of it. Like, say we vote on the merger and it's yes. For someone to leave the week after that because they didn't like the vote, like, I got a serious problem with you.
Yeah, okay. I
Now,
understand.
through the
For
end of the
6 months.
summer,
Yeah.
they take the exit ramp, like, hey, brother, I am all for you. But someone to leave a week after the vote,
Yeah.
when you say you love people and that you desire unity above anything else, just because you didn't get your way. Now, I get it. The problem with voting is there's always someone who loses. That's why I don't like voting. Like, we only have like 4 things that we vote on, in our church, because people don't like to lose. I'm a big, I am uberly competitive, right? Graham knows that in the box. Like, even though I'm twice as old as he is, I'll still try to keep up with that guy. I just hate to lose. We don't want that to come across, but just because you lose doesn't mean you quit. You know what I mean? Just because you didn't get your thing. People think that as the lead pastor that we do everything that I want to do. You have lost your mind.
Right.
Like, hardly anything ever gets done exactly the way I want it to do. But that's compromise and working together and seeking unity. So yeah, I don't think it's acceptable for anyone to leave because of the vote. I think it is completely acceptable and appropriate that at the end of the summer, you're like, you know what, this isn't for me. Now, let me give you some justifiable reasons that may come. You saw it on Easter, 220 people. The reality is we come together, that might be our low bar on a Sunday morning. There's a lot of folks that, that's not a small church anymore. I want a church where I know every single buddy's name and all their issues. We might not be that church anymore. And so there'll be some folks that will want to be in smaller congregations. No matter what we do, no matter how intentional we are, that might be the case. And they think, this isn't for me. Okay.
Yeah.
So there might be things like that. But
I realize even that's relative. I grew up in a church of a few thousand people.
yeah,
A 200-person church
That's
is
small
a
for him.
tiny church in my mind. A 500-member church is a small church in my mind, because I grew up in a church of about 3,000 people.
yeah. Where Mary and I, we
Yeah.
grew up in churches in independent Baptist worlds where 50 was the average size of a church.
Yeah, and to echo that, and I would say if you're there and of saying, what, if this vote doesn't go my way, I'm leaving. What if we did that?
But you certainly have the opportunity to do that.
We do. But I'm just asking, what if we did? I'm not talking about at the end of the summer. At the end of the summer, maybe I'll say, I can't work with this guy, I'm out. But I don't think that's going to be the case. But but I'm talking about right away. If we said as a church, if things don't go my way, I'm leaving. What if your leadership did that?
Well, I would hope that the leadership wouldn't put it to a vote if any of them felt that way.
No, I'm saying on anything.
Well, let's say this.
Or anything, not this particular issue.
Let's say we don't get this vote.
Right.
Let's say that people vote no. Now, clearly, Shay and I both have put significant resources into saying yes. What if I get up the next week and say, well, you guys voted no, I'm done, peace out?
Well, then, thank goodness I didn't vote yes.
Yeah, right? I mean, you would say to me, how can you call yourself a spiritual leader and leave the church high and dry just because you didn't get what you want? Yeah, but and I can tell you, I'm convinced it's exactly what God wanted to do. It doesn't even matter, right? It doesn't even matter to treat people that way. You just don't do that. Right? So I always tell people all the time that if it's unacceptable for the leader to do it, it's unacceptable for you to do it. Because realistically in Scripture, you know what the qualifications for being an elder and a pastor is? Be a grown-up Christian. That's it. There's no special thing for me, for you. It's just be a grown-up Christian. Don't let baby Christians be pastors. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, and again, realize we're not talking about after we've been into the process and you kind of see it fleshed out. That's a different
It seems like the
thing.
question is more of like immediate, like what will happen after.
Not necessarily. I asked the question, just so everyone knows. That was my question I submitted. And not because I'm not that person, you know, that if it doesn't, yes or no, I'm
Sure.
out. But it's kind of, you know, it's a reality that hopefully you guys have looked at. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to lose people. Whether people leave immediately, and the people that leave immediately, if there is any, probably are not here this morning. Probably didn't submit any questions.
Probably not.
Okay,
That's
so
very, very wise,
I mean,
yeah.
I get where you're coming from as far as like you find that unacceptable, but I don't think that they'll care.
No, they won't.
Probably would have left that week anyway.
Right, yeah.
I mean, they were
So,
only here for a
and that's
short
what,
time
I
anyway.
think I phrased it, I said, in your minds, what is it, what's an accept, like, did you think about it, well, it'd still be worth merging the churches if we lose 20% of people, it's not worth it. If we lose, or is it
Well,
just?
let me ask you this. I'll ask you a question.
Okay.
If you felt compelled that God had led you in a direction that was for His glory and His honor, that would change the very fabric of how you do ministry, and lives were at stake as a result of it, how much would you be willing to pay to go there?
Anything I needed to. I'd be willing to pay any price. Let me ask you a question, follow it up with that. If you feel that way, then why do we even put it to a vote?
Because you can't go anywhere alone. You need people to be on board with you.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, is this part of the same question, bro? You have something?
Yeah, kind of. Partially my thought on the whole conversation's going on and a question to follow it up. Hopefully this is what we're all here to ask is, we're having a conversation because hopefully we all see in our hearts it's like, we all want what we want. When we don't get it, we don't feel good about it, but hopefully we don't pout like children.
Yeah.
But hopefully we're all asking the questions because we're trying to figure out, is this God's will? I mean, I hope that's why we're all here. We're trying to figure out as a group, is it God's will to bring us together? And my question is, how does the two churches coming together, you know, we've talked about a united mission. Both churches have the same type of mission. We have the same desire in our community. My question is, how does the two churches coming together, how are we strategically using that to fulfill God's will? Does that make sense?
It's a good question, yeah. The reality is church ministries reach a point of critical mass, that the energy is a lot easier to maintain and move forward. The principal momentum of leading people is a powerful one. Yeah, I think a couple people mentioned like on Easter that there was so much energy. Well, when you get 220 people in the same room, that's what happens. Like, it's a lot easier to do things at that level than it is at like 50 people. Like Aaron, we can look at Aaron and think, I mean, he is a great, amazing worship leader, but people could look at what he did and how he led on Easter and be like, man, you were so great on Easter, but last Sunday there was only 20 of us and you didn't do such a good job. It's a lot harder to work with 20 than it is to work with 220. The same thing with what God's called the mission to do, that us joining together allows us to address and to work on things that builds momentum exponentially. We talked about moving further, farther, faster in the kingdom of God. One of the things that I know for a fact that it addresses is the one of the key principles in order that the church is built on is disciples. Like, God didn't really call us to build a church, He called us to make disciples. Now, the church being built is an effect. You know, making disciples is the cause, right? You can have a church without having disciples, but you cannot have disciples without having a church, right? I mean, that's kind of the principle. But there's a lot of just intentional discipleship principles and practices that currently both churches are missing. And we know they're missing. We don't do a good job in that, and the reason being is because we're too stretched out. We're just, bottom line, too stretched out. It's not because we don't see it there. I'm sure Shay does this. Like, I have a tier line of things that need to be done, and things that have to be done, things that should be done. I kind of list it all. Well, the reality is so many things just don't make it above the tier line to get done. This expands that tier line of things that we should be doing for His kingdom in significant ways. That moves us forward. I think is a huge reason to do that. And talk about church planning, that you can't, we could in theory plan a church running 100, 120 people, but it's hard to do because our idea of church planning is to have a church plant strategically in the area that can come into our church, incubate inside of our church, and then a group of people go out into another area like Berryville or Front Royal and then launch. But they've built momentum inside of our community and body, right? Well, like if you're, say, how many you guys have Sunday morning? Like 60, like 80 people, maybe? Okay, say you had 80 people. Well, then 40 left next Sunday to go plant another church. All of a sudden, now you're fighting for survival again. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. Now, if we're running 200-300, and we take 40 people and go plant a church in Front Royal,
yeah, there's a critical mass piece.
It's a totally different conversation.
There's also a piece I know I spoke to this a bit when we announced it at our members meeting, but we both are trying to operate in our giftings and outside of our giftings. Well, our giftings complement one another. Where James is strong on vision, I'm stronger on implementation. And so I'm trying to cast vision all the time, and I'm not very good at it. And we've got some glaring things as a part of our church that's evidence that I'm not very good at it. And so, but I'm better at, like what I joke about, I have the gift of criticism. It's a spiritual gift that not many people are aware of. But I'm not good at the originality piece. I'm better at taking an idea and making it better. That's where I'm stronger. But I'm using a lot of energy to try to cast vision and get people on board and do stuff. And quite frankly, it wears me out to the point that I don't do the stuff that I'm actually good at because I'm too tired. Where
vice versa, just flip it.
Yeah, James is strong at casting that vision, and then trying to implement it wears him out to where he doesn't feel like casting the vision anymore. And so if we bring those two things together, you've got a marriage of those gifts.
What are we trying to accomplish that we're not accomplishing?
When's the last time we had a baptism in our church of a new believer?
It's a great question.
Mike?
When's the last time you led someone to Christ?
So discipleship?
That is discipleship, right?
Yeah.
I hope you guys are meeting with people one-on-one in your house, in your home, and you're discipling people to know Jesus better.
So how are we going to do this better as a combined team than we were doing it this week?
I think a lot of what James just said is we're not spread as thin because there's things that just don't happen because there's not time and energy.
Yeah. And with people, I guess I'll say this at this level, that if someone to vote no on this that hasn't really considered, doesn't have legitimate reasons why to say no, I'd ask them to run. I don't think they've really considered the price that people pay just to make church happen as it is. Does the Church of Winchester know how much Shay actually sacrifices? Do you really even know? And I think some of you guys will say yes, but you don't. Like when I talk to Shay and Sarah, you don't. Maybe you may have appreciation for it, but you don't understand the full content of how hard it is to do what we do. It's really hard. And it's really hard when you're doing it by yourself. It is really, really, really hard. Like some aspect, I just ask, like, why would you vote no when this could make everything, in many ways, so much easier?
So we're going to accomplish our goals better because we have stronger leadership. We have more complementing abilities.
Well, think about it this way. Perfect example. Detroit Lions fan. Not anymore. I recovered. I gave them up. It's been a year since my last drink. But I remember the Lions from the 80s. Barry Sanders.
Yep.
Unequivocally, now it's important that in order for this merger to work, that we agree on this. Barry Sanders was the best running back of all time.
Well,
That has to be the case. All right. Barry Sanders could run backwards 20 yards and then go score a touchdown all by himself because he had to. Right? Now, how many Super Bowl rings does Barry Sanders have? Zero. Right? Now you take a guy like Emmitt Smith. Like you really want to get me fired up. Try to compare Emmitt Smith to Barry Sanders. Then we can have a conversation, right? Don't even go there. How many rings does Emmitt Smith have?
2, man.
3. Why? Because he's a better running back? No. He had a great team. So he didn't have to be all those things, and he was more effective. He won more games, not because he was great, because the team was great. So what this does, and the reason why we want to move forward on this, is this puts together a great team. Because here's the thing, like I've told people at Mosaic, a couple things were going to happen this year if we don't go through the merger. Well, I can give you 3 possibilities. One, we're going to either have to hire an executive pastor, because I can't keep going the way I'm going. Mosaic will not exist this way next year without some significant changes. We're going to hire an executive pastor, and we're going to hire a worship leader. Those things I've already told our folks have to happen, right? Jacob, Janie, you guys remember those conversations.
Do you not need to do that anyway, even if you have the merger, or are you considering that as possible? I don't know enough about either church.
So here's the thing.
These questions.
Those things, either those things happen this year, or I don't know, I'm not sure I'll still be able to be the pastor by 2019. My bandwidth can't handle it, right? And it's not like I have one of those jobs that are just, 40 hours, go, check in and check out. Sometimes I hate my job, but I don't feel like I have to apologize for what God's called me to do there. I would rather do something else, but it's just what I'm doing. So those things were happening anyway, whereas, so things have to change anyway for us, whereas.
See, we did, I don't know who else from the church of Winchester was fully aware of that picture.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
Well, I'm just telling you because we're having family conversations, right?
Yeah.
So this is just kind of family time, right?
Was that presented, was your congregation told that, or your leadership told that before the merger was proposed? Because it was when the merger is proposed, it seemed like, okay, we can do all these things better. Okay, it wasn't proposed as if we do this, we can avoid these negative things from happening.
Yeah. Well, let me be clear. He didn't say, James didn't say, these are negative things. He said, we're going to have to do these things.
Well, sure, but were those things, and I know there's issues, or not issues, but there's things on our side of the church, if the merger doesn't go through, then, things would need to change here as well. But, I'm not sure, were those things that the church knew needed to happen regardless?
I would say,
if the merger happens, then this would solve.
I would say
these things.
not the church as a whole, no, because one thing I never do is Craig, how often have I complained to you?
No, you don't show weakness.
Now.
But y'all said to us before that both churches could continue to exist simultaneously, but the merging of the churches would be fortuitous because of the strengths.
But we can't.
But you can't stay the same. That's a different thing.
Go ahead, Gina.
Yeah.
We're new to Winchester and to this community, and so our church experience is very, very different. We've tried different churches in the area that are believing gospel preaching. Our experience has always been, and our goal in life has always been to link arms and spread the gospel. And so while I understand that it could be very uncomfortable for the church at Winchester as well as for Mosaic Bible Church, at the end of the day, the purpose of our lives is to glorify Christ and to spread the gospel and to engage our community in Winchester. And if the Lord Jesus Christ is giving us an opportunity to come together, it'll be uncomfortable. I'm sure we'll have lots of bumps in the road. I'm sure we'll have to figure out how to make the puzzle pieces fit. I'm sure there are going to have to be a lot of meetings as to how to redesign, refocus, and better implement discipleship opportunities, gospel sharing opportunities. At the end of the day, I just really think that we really need to trust Christ in this.
Yeah.
And like you said, if at the end of the summer it doesn't work out for our families, then we can lovingly come together and say it's not going to work. But I will say, being an outsider and coming in, Winchester needs a body of believers to come together. We have visited church after church that they have flat out dogged out other churches in the community. And I'm not used to that, and I'm not for that.
Yeah.
That is not unifying, that is very divisive. It's very dismissive. It's very self-exalting. And so what we're seeing as a couple and as a family happening here is that, we have to die to ourselves and say, Lord Jesus, how do you want us to be used in this place?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, all of the concerns are really, really valid.
So
but-
let me circle this around to what you're saying here.
Yeah.
One of the things, Leadership 101, one of the things you don't do in church planting is talk about what you're not.
Right.
Right? So, no, I haven't told all of our church everything that we're not doing well. Because how would you like to have that conversation? People working hard as they can, you're just not cutting it. Yeah. Never have that conversation. Sure. At the same time, people that are close, that are, I would call them card carrying, people that are really carrying the water of the church, they know where our strengths and weaknesses are. And we've had these conversations, like, we need to do some things in this area, right? And the people that are closest to me, they see the rub. They see it more than anyone. How those things come.
Yeah, there was a...
Oh, Mary,
Sorry,
you
Joe,
going to
go
say
ahead.
something? Joe? Mary?
I was going to say, one of the things probably the pivotal point was when the elders and the wives got together and we had a conversation and we put basically everything on the board. And one of the things that we purposely did was to say, with the information that James just presented, we said, that cannot be a driving factor. We have to move forward apart. There has to be other reasons other than the job situation that drives this. And so we purposely put that off the table and said, are there better reasons to move forward with this merger? Because if that is the only reason why, then it's not a good reason.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'd say be careful that you're not hearing what's not being said.
Yeah.
Because it felt like kind of what was being heard was, if we don't merge together, the churches are going to fall apart. That's not what was said. What was said is, if we don't merge together, there's some things that each church is going to have to do to make changes. That the merger takes care of those changes. That's not the same thing. So for instance, what James said is, if the merger doesn't go through, we're going to have to hire an executive pastor and a worship pastor. Okay? What he didn't say is, if the merger doesn't go through, Mosaic's going to fall apart because we don't have an executive pastor and a worship pastor. It's not the same thing, right?
Yeah.
What does...
That's his gift of criticism coming out. See, we just did that.
What does Church at Winchester have?
It was cool.
My gifts are in the implementation. That's the executive piece. Now, the accounting part's not my gift. That's Jonathan's piece. All right? And Jonathan's very gifted at it. Mm-hmm. But the implementation of stuff is where my gifts are. And then in this fall, now, Allie has done a wonderful job leading worship for us over the last few years. Fantastic, especially considering that she went to Dan and said, hey, I would like to start learning how to lead worship, and his job took him out of the state, and he said, well, next week you're the worship leader. All right? She's done a fantastic job. At the same time, and Allie will tell you this, she would not be the person to bring two worship teams together. She doesn't have the experience, the leadership skills, those kind of things. And this fall, God brings a family into our church who moved back in the area to be able to take care of their parents, but was a worship pastor at a church plant on the West Coast, who is now back here and moved back in the area as a nurse vocationally, who does have the gifts and experiences. Aaron led worship on Easter Sunday, so you guys saw him there, that has those gifts. And so there's the pieces of the puzzle that James is saying, hey, Mosaic would have to have these things to continue to move forward in a healthy way, that the church at Winchester has those things on a leadership point. In the same way, and I've communicated with the school I work with even, and we would have to start looking at least bringing on another bivocational person to start taking the load for us to continue to grow. There's a reason that we hit that 100 person and then we drop back down, and we hit 100 people and we drop back down. Everything bottlenecks. And so we needed someone who also, Joe and Jonathan have done a fantastic job, but we would have to have somebody who has some more time be able to be dedicated to some of those things and is gifted in some of the areas that I'm not gifted in. Before this conversation, I have a buddy, Jody. Some of you have heard me talk about Jody. I would love to have Jody come up here. Jody right now is in full-time ministry and has a family of 6. He's not going to come here to be bivocational unless one of his bushes catches on fire and starts talking to him. It's not going to happen, right? And so there were some changes, yes. I think Joyce asked me, do we need Mosaic? And I would say, do we need Mosaic specifically? I mean, no. Do we need to grow in the areas that Mosaic's strong? For sure. We have to. And so that's where I think, but to your question earlier too, Jason, of how are we accomplishing this better? Do we have an outline of saying, well, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, we're going to do this? Well, those are programs. Those will change over time, right? But are we better equipped to be able to accomplish the Great Commission in our city as one church as opposed to two? I believe we are.
Yeah, when you start looking at a great book, Good to Great, if any of you guys have read it, about how to build dynamic teams. I mean, there's just some general leadership principles that are across the board. It's far more important of who you got on the team than what is it that you're actually producing or selling. Mm-hmm. Like, your team is what either determines success or failure, right? Put together a great team, you're going to be successful. All right, so do we need to do this? Do we need to do that? No, not at all. How many of you guys ever cut wood before? Right? Why don't you just use an axe? Well, Jackson Chainsaw's cheating, brother. No, you don't need a chainsaw. It's kind of expensive. You can buy an axe for $20. Right?
Right.
Could you cut wood with an axe?
Absolutely.
Why do you need a chainsaw?
Because I have to do other things in my life as well.
Now, you picked the right guy because he likes to cut wood.
With the chainsaw then.
So using a chainsaw is a force multiplier.
Yeah, correct.
Makes you more effective so you can spend more time at home not being Grizzly Adams outside for 12 hours a day. So that force multiplier helps you prioritize your life in other areas, doesn't it?
Right.
Right. So, but you don't really need it. But when the question doesn't, do we need it? That's not the question. The question is, how do we effectively make disciples? How do we do that the absolute best we possibly can? All right. Then the question of needing it doesn't even come in the picture. It's how do we do this best? All right. So the great questions in life are not between good and bad. Like, any idiot can choose those, right? It's between what is good and what is best, right? And that's where really victory is won. That's when significance is played out. That's when really we start to have we stop making a dent and we start making a difference, right? And I think both of our churches have made a dent in Winchester. Now, we made a difference in individual lives for sure, but we've only made a dent, and that dent's relatively small. What we're asking, what we think this is do is to make a significant difference.
And then another question that has been asked has been, why are we going to vote? And I think you kind of talked about it a little bit, but if it comes across, if the vote comes in and it's negative on both sides, then that's something that both leadership teams are going to have to say, there's something that we're doing wrong from a leadership perspective. If it comes, other than that, it becomes more of a litmus test to understand, okay, where are our congregations? How are they feeling, moving forward into this merger? So if it's 100%, we might be able to move things a little bit faster. If it's, closer to just a simple majority, that will adjust how we kind of proceed forward in the merger. So that's would be my take as to why we're doing the vote. I don't know.
Yeah, it provides several things. One, I mean, how many of you guys just like being told to do something without your input on doing it? At work? How many like your boss comes to you and says, do this? Now they do that, or sometimes that's necessary, but how many times do you rather have them say, what do you think about this? I was thinking this. And you're like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then you're able to add pieces to it, right? And then you're all about it, right? People like to have a choice, right? And when you take choice away from people, it gets ugly, right? The elders aren't dictators over God's heritage, right? They're servant leaders. And so part of it is for you guys to realize, in a very real way, you guys have a choice. And well, you come every Sunday, you have a choice anyway. No one's forcing you to come to our churches, right? You can just go somewhere else. You have a choice, right? So the vote is to understand, to show each and every member that we have in our church that you have value, and that also not only do you have value, you have a responsibility. This isn't just about the elders making decisions for us, that you have to carry that. Debbie?
If I can just draw a little picture of what you're saying, what I hear you saying is, in my marriage relationship with Craig, is he's got to make that ultimate call when we have a disagreement on the direction this family needs to go. And I have that choice to rebel or submit or trust God that he has given Craig the wisdom to do that. But I want a voice in that. I might not get the vote to make, I don't have 2 votes to his 1, but I want to at least have my voice heard. And I think that's what this vote in this merger is. It's so that, yes, our leadership has said, we think this is great. This is what we prayed about. This is what we see happening. We feel that God is calling this to happen. But we want to hear your voice. We want to know that you count, you matter in this marriage, that we're not just going to go, here's the road, baby, take it or leave it. Because you know what? The road looks pretty good sometimes when you're given that option. We need to have a voice, and I think that's what that vote is about.
That's powerful. That's a great way of putting it. You know, the reality is, too, we're also...
You yourself, James, have said that there's a lot of people in Mosaic that have not gone through a membership class and are not members.
Yeah.
They don't have a vote.
Technically, no, but they do have a voice.
So how do they express themselves?
How do they express themselves?
They don't have a vote. They're not members. They haven't gone through a membership class because there hasn't been one.
Yeah, and the way
Classes, I went to one.
right. Typically, what we do is we sit down with everybody. You know, with those invested relationships. You know what I mean? And we're like, we want to hear what you're thinking. We want to hear what you're saying. What do you think about this? You know, we want you to be a part of this. One of our guys here, Graham, that had left earlier, but he's a guy that I'm working with. I work out with him and stuff. He mentors my sons in fitness and stuff. And, he's not a member, but man, he is intimately involved in this process. He fasts and prays for me every Thursday, but he's not a member.
Me, I'm not a member, but I am so interested in what's going on here because God is working in my life.
Yeah. So I think the membership matters. I'm not going to say that it doesn't, but we don't draw lines at Mosaic because, well, if you're a member, you don't. If you're not a member, you don't have a vote. What we tell people is everybody has a voice, right? Everybody has a voice. We want to hear from that. Now, also, the reason why we've done this voting is to possibly to see things that we haven't seen. Like maybe we've missed something. Now, what I'm really excited about is of all these questions we've had, everything that's come up, not a single question has come out from left field that our elders haven't already thought about, processed, talked about, debated, worked through, prayed through, fasted on, and have come to an understanding with. Now, for me, when I see that, I think, man, now we're on to something. Because that shows you some pretty significant stuff when things that are coming to you are things that you've already worked through. So the vote also does that, is it helps you prevail to provide a kind of litmus test of have you thought through things properly.
This is just an observation. I think it's kind of telling in a way that how many people are in this room? 25, 30, maybe? And how many people do we have as a combined, between both churches?
Yeah.
Where are the people?
Well, the question I have with that is, what do you mean? What is it telling?
I
Telling
mean,
us what?
if we're really invested in our churches, why aren't we here? It's just an observation. It concerns me that people
Maybe
aren't
some
here.
people are cool with it.
On that note, and something I think I'm hearing, just in little things around it, those of us that are here, I encourage all of us to talk to the people who aren't.
Yeah.
If they have negative comments or negative concerns, or they're leaning in that no direction, you're leaning in the yes direction, whatever it is, we've got Joe, we've got Jonathan, we got James, we got Jay, we got Shay. Maybe they're concerned about coming to them and talking about it because they're like, man, I'm really feeling bad. They'll talk to you about it, they'll talk to me, or they'll talk to Jackson.
Yeah, that's a good.
We are a church. We all have that ability to. I mean, me and Chris have had these conversations on the side. Just since Chris is here and I can point him out, he doesn't mind. We've had these very specific conversations in our friendships away from the church.
Yeah.
We should all be having that conversation. If someone has concerns and they talk to me about it, great. I probably don't have most of the answers, so I'm going to say, hey, go talk to whoever. I mean, I haven't had the ability. Shay knows this. I'm talking to Shay some. I really want to sit down and talk to James and pick James' brains because I don't know James.
It'll be a short conversation, brother.
I wish I did. I mean, I've been around you, some here and there, but I would love to sit down and pick your brain on some things.
Absolutely.
Get to know you better. I kind of have the same intention, just me and Joe. I've had the intention a couple times to talk to him, but my work schedule is kind of like James. I get stuck on these nights and weekend schedules, and the couple times Joe's been around, he's had something where he had to run out. I haven't had the opportunity, but I want to have those conversations, and I think we should be encouraging everybody in both of our churches to have those conversations amongst themselves as open-hearted conversations, but to involve the elders and people that can give them answers. The fact there isn't a larger group here. We've had town halls before. Maybe a bunch of people are planning on coming tomorrow night because this is Saturday morning. And let's face it, Saturday morning you got kids.
Well, and here's the thing too. I'll be honest with you. A lot of our folks at Mosaic they've already said, Roger that.
Yeah. They don't have any questions. They don't need.
Well, you can come tomorrow? I don't need to come tomorrow. I'm all for it, man. Let's go. We should have done this a long time ago. Like, they're like, okay. They're just, okay, when do we do it?
Yeah.
They're like, well, why should I waste a Saturday morning? I'm for it. Let's go. So the fact that they're not here doesn't mean necessarily they're against it.
Or not invested.
Or not invested. It's they're like, yeah, I'm all for it. Let's go.
Yeah, and that's why we did them at multiple times and multiple days too, because
we really want people to go to one. Really, if they can come to all of them if they wanted. We want to make sure people have the opportunity to
at least get to one. Yeah. And so you got Little League games going on today, and I mean there's a lot of stuff going on. So it may or may not have been a good time. It may be that people don't feel like they need to be at it. I mean, it's a little bit different than, I've really encouraged, y'all guys have gotten email, I've really encouraged our membership to be here. I think it's good. I think it's important for them to be here. They aren't member meetings though, where I would say it's quite as essential for members to be here.
Yeah, and I think our folks have, we encourage them to come. And at the same time, I haven't heard from anyone that's against it, and they're for it. So
yeah, I would say too, if somebody's talking to you that has major concerns, you need to tell them to talk to the leadership.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten any major concerns. We've gotten concerns, but when you talk through it, and most people have said, hey, it's not a major concern, it's just a concern. And I've gotten a few of those, but I haven't gotten anybody that's, has come to me and said, hey, I'm adamantly against it, and here's why, boom, 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 boom.
And that's also a good thing. When you see that the concerns people have is about the house and the little things, when those are all the questions we're getting, that means that the big things that would normally derail something like this aren't even being asked, right? It's the little stuff, which is great. They're important, but that's also an indicator of our bodies of how the Lord is leading, that if we're consumed with these little questions, that means the big ones aren't even coming to the radar, which also is a good thing, not a bad thing. Is you want to say something, or are you just really clearing your throat right now?
My allergies are out. I'm sorry.
It's crazy this week.
Sorry about
I thought you were giving me a plate.
I can't breathe. It's okay.
Lisa, sort of to back up what you're saying, I see the same thing that you're saying with that, what you're telling. I was curious about what you see in that. I'm going to be having some supportive conversations with people tomorrow.
Yeah.
To make sure that they either.
And I really encourage you to do that. Now, again, I would.
Or if they're not on board, one way or the other, but to say Whatever you're thinking.
Yeah. That's why I send the biggest guy in the church to do that.
But, I mean, I'm gonna have some conversation with people tomorrow, just to say, hey, if I've got friends and concerns, and I don't see their faces, so I wanna, I agree, but I think it's up to us to do that. And I think that's also, it's not a top-down thing. I'm not waiting for the leaders to do that for me. I'm doing it because I've got the relationship with the people.
Amen.
And it's gonna be like that when we're doing this church marriage too, I think, that we're gonna be the ones that are gonna make it happen. These guys are gonna do everything they can, but at the end of the day, if we're not the ones that are gonna take the initiative when we see the issues happening, it's never gonna work.
Probably the most important thing you heard all day is right there what Jackson just said. That was kingdom gold, brother. That is it right there.
I'm just ready to have more family. I'm ready to come together and have more family, and we're already God's church. What can we do to enhance that with each other and then outside of that? And I'm ready to have more brothers. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, amen. Amen. Yeah, so I think some of our church personalities kind of play into this as well, is that
which are a reflection of our personalities.
Really is really a reflection. Our folks are, because it's more reflection, might have more kind of risk. Like we just do stuff. Like, okay, we're not sure if it'll work out. Oh, it don't matter. Let's try it anyway. Like, we're okay with that. You know, we've done some great stuff, worked out really well, and we've made some really foolish decisions, and we got bit by it. But it's okay. We'll just keep moving. Our folks generally don't take a lot of time to process stuff as a body. We just kind of think about it, pray about it. Okay, go, boom, take off.
But the other part isn't bad either.
No, it's not. It's a great part.
That's why it's good for them to come together.
No, trust me, I've been bit by the other part a lot of times. One thing I like about Shay is because he's not like that. Like that grounds me to places that I need to be grounded in. That really helps me. You know, that gift of criticism is so, I love watching it work. I just sit back and go, man, that is so cool. I wish I had that. You know, because I'm so optimistic. Like, I'll be, it'll work out. Let's go. You know, it'll work out. We can make it happen, you know. But I get myself in some real doozies because of that, you know. So even the idea and kind of the vision of this, how this thing has worked out, just again, our strengths. But how we've mapped this out, how we laid this out, the 40 days of prayer, the town hall meetings, that's really been Shay kind of leading through that, you know, and that's his thing, right? And I look back at it, it's been done well, it's been wise. We process the questions as they've come up. We've already thought through, I mean, like, I'm so excited because, man, the implementation of this great vision, like, he's just killed it. Like, it's just awesome. You know, and I'm just like a cheerleader, like, yeah, let's go, you know. It's been really cool to watch that work, you know what I mean, to see how that's been mapped out. So there's the benefits of the personalities. I think our churches are going to benefit from that. The Church of Winchester carries more of that introspection, kind of careful thought process, whereas our folks kind of have a tendency to go off half-cocked, you know. You put those two together, and man, they can do some really cool stuff together.
Yeah. And as strong as some of that stuff that we have is, there's some strength and some benefit of just going and stepping out on faith. And again, there may be things that we're talking today that sound defensive. I mean, it's hard not to be a little bit, you know. And so, at least for me, I kind of fight against that a lot. But at the same time, because we are family and just having an open and honest conversations, there's been a lot of time for me at the Church of Winchester that's been really discouraging, and I felt beat up because I cast something that I want us to do and be a part of, and all I get is the critical parts of it. What did you think about this? Did you think about this? What about this? What about this? We shouldn't do it this way. Well, we got this kind of personality to where I want to say, you know what? I don't know if this is a word y'all use at Mosaic, but we do. Screw it. You know what? If you can't get behind me and support me on this when I'm asking you to, and you just want to fight with me about it, now that's not all the time. I don't want to paint this wrong picture, but it can feel that way at times. As opposed to having that benefit of something to be able to say, all right, maybe we can say, all right, have we thought through these things? And then we can jump on board and follow in this way. I think there's a great strength between those two things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can have a great engine with all the pieces and parts to it, all shined up with the 4-barrel Holley carburetor and everything else, but it's the fuel that causes the explosion for things to get fired, right? So enthusiasm and energy can really provide that, but uncontrolled energy can be a problem, call a forest fire, right? So those two benefits really work together well.
I wasn't going to come today because I came to the first one, but I'm glad that I did because I think from what's come from the front, it's been a lot better and a lot more meaningful than what was presented the first one.
Oh, okay.
So I know that people get one more shot, but if there's people that came to the first one that didn't come to this one, it may have changed their mind from negative to positive.
Yeah.
I think that's a good reflection of the development of the whole
It's good it didn't change it the other way.
Yeah.
It's good it didn't change it the other way.
I don't think it would.
I think part of it too, and I just, because we're having family conversations, one of my concerns is that folks from the Church of Winchester don't misread what they see on a platform from me. Because sometimes when they see that, I don't know, what do you call it?
I mean, I always refer to, some of you have heard me talk about it, on stage, it's stage makeup. If you ever seen anybody with stage makeup on, they look right on stage, they look ridiculous off the stage. And so, and I get this because people see someone who's a little bit more, I guess, passionate, engaging on stage, and then off stage, I'm a little bit, I get accused of being like aloof, like I didn't even think you liked me, all right? Because I'm quieter, I'm more reserved. It's not a fake personality, it's just me turned up to communicate something. And so I think the same thing for you, like it's you turned up to try to communicate.
That one of my concerns is for the Church of Winchester to see. I wish I could sit down and just have you guys all at the kitchen table for coffee and just have a conversation. I really do.
Yeah, I think people will like James more as they spend time with him outside of Sunday morning stage, and people will like me less as they spend time with me on stage. Yeah, Jackson agrees. Jackson knows me better than most. So, yeah.
That's what we have the summer for.
Yeah.
That's what we have the summer for everybody that doesn't know James to get to know him and have that one-on-one conversation, and for us to get to know Shay.
Yeah, and we'll be doing some deliberate things. We talked about doing like party with the pastors, and just do life together, and get to know us. It's hard. It's hard to do that now, right? Because you think in a marriage, now some of you think, yeah, but when I got married, I really spent time to know. Really? Honestly, you didn't know your spouse.
I was engaged 1 month after I met my wife. So
hey, when you want to marry up, you got to get.
I had to move quick, right?
Yeah, I got to move quick. I don't marry young.
We had 15 years though in June, so 15 years of marriage.
That's awesome. But really, the marriage is where the intimacy gets developed, right? I mean, we spend. I'm not a big fan of people dating forever. Like I tell single folks, like seek God, find who he or she is, and go after it. Well, I don't really know that you won't until you make the commitment, a covenant with them. Then you really get to know them. So I think part of maybe our concerns on both ends are things that we're not really sure because we just don't know. Well, some of that, unfortunately, I wish we could do it all, but it's just impossible until the commitment happens. We could do these for 6 months, and without the commitment, it really isn't gonna, they wouldn't be that effective.
And that's where faith and trust in Christ, if this is the way he's leading, then the bad areas are going to drop off, and he's going to sanctify us, and he's going to accentuate our strengths.
Yeah, I do think what we see as a church bodies coming together is indicative. It's heading the same direction as our leaders. Because when our first leaders first come together, it was awkward, clumsy, kind of concerns of both parts. And the more we meet together as leaders, the more intimate and connected we're becoming. And I think I see that in our church bodies as well.
Yeah, and I'd really encourage people from Church at Winchester, ask Jonathan some questions. Because Jonathan wasn't on board until we all sat down and met together. And now he's working the details of what this is going to look like on an administrative level, more than many of us are. And so he's really seeing the ins and outs. And Jonathan's been praying this chapter, Isaiah 43. I'm not going to read the whole thing this morning. Just look at verse 19. But Jonathan's been praying this for 6 months probably, specifically about this. And man, this is a pause. I think Joe would affirm this. Man, Jonathan has been a gift to the church at Winchester. Whew, man, more than anybody has a clue, I think. He has been a gift to us. But Isaiah 43:19 says, "Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." That verse is specifically what Jonathan's been praying for this process of saying, "All right, God, is this a new thing you're doing?" And then kind of claiming that, all right, if you're doing this, you're going to make a way in the areas that it doesn't seem like it would work. You're going to make it work in the areas that it doesn't seem like it would work. And so,
the powerful part of that verse is why? Rivers in the desert. Like, not just making a way through the wilderness so that you can have clarity, so that others flourish. The whole reason why we want to do this merger was so that Winchester flourishes for the glory of God. In a way it can't now, a way it hasn't yet. And I mean, that's why God put us in the city, is for that purpose. And that's why we're pursuing this.
I'm on board. It might not sound like I am from the, but I just have some concern. I'm actually really glad that I came here this morning and heard you say what you said about things would have to change with both churches. And I think, in all respect to what Joe said earlier, I think maybe that should have been something on the table, because I actually feel better about it, knowing kind of like a little bit more, like, rather than having two churches that are really going to have to drastically change to be able to come together and have more strengths. I think maybe that should have been a little more on the forefront, or at least included in the positive reasons why. Didn't have to. I might have phrased it wrong earlier about the avoiding a negative. Here's some additional positives, and how that actually looks. Because I'm actually more excited about that. Because I don't know you, James, but I love Shay, and if he loves you, then I love you. So I'm excited to be able to cast my vote for yes, not only to flourish, for the churches to come together and flourish here in Winchester, but also to be able to make you guys' lives, who've sacrificed so much, better and easier. And if you guys feel comfortable with this, then I trust the leadership. But it's good to know that, okay, logistically it helps them out as well. If your congregation doesn't know that you're burnt out, then I certainly don't know. Not that you're burnt out, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. If they don't know, then I don't know. And then I have a pretty close relationship with Shay, but so I know that he can't continue doing what he's doing forever either. No one can. But that makes me feel good to say, okay, this is getting both of these godly men closer to what they really feel passionate and feel called to do. I think that's a worthy reason to cast a yes vote on this.
And I appreciate, brother, what you're saying, because you should think that way. Here's the problem. As leaders, I'm never just supposed to think that way. Like, my personal benefit, my comfort, my longevity, those aren't things that I spend a high priority on. I would not do what I do if those were priorities for me.
And if you did feel that way, I probably wouldn't. But I think it's kind of like it's a circle type of thing.
We want people. The problem is, what we present. Our concern was, as leaders, is if we presented that, like that becomes the poison pill, the only thing people think about. Yeah. And when that is not it at all. Matter of fact, that mission is driving every aspect. We want God's mission and His glory to drive every fabric of our decision, and doing this or not. We think, there's some very practical ways we'll benefit significantly, and probably think maybe personally, not just Shay and I are excited, but maybe Sarah and Mary are probably more excited about this than anybody, because they're the ones that pay the highest price, right, as our families. But we didn't want that to taint the well. But clearly, I'm glad it got brought up today, because clearly there's some definite benefits to that
absolutely
that are huge.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Chris. I think what Joe was saying earlier, though, about we wanted mission to be the primary driver, because in the same way, you hear this in like premarital counseling kind of stuff all the time. Like, the guy thinks that getting married is going to take care of his sin problem. So he has like well, I struggle with lust, but I'll get married and then the lust will be gone. Well, all of us who are married know that it doesn't magically work that way. And so, but if you focus on, well, here's all the things that are negative for me anyway, here's all the things that are negative, and we're going to get married and all those things will be gone, well, I'm going to be highly disappointed.
Yeah.
It's going to take some time for that to happen, but the mission piece is key. But I do agree with you. I think it's helpful for people who care about us. You say Mary wanted something, Mary?
I was just gonna kind of agree. Thank you for what you said. Also, because it's like a marriage, if the husband and wife, as strong as they are, is as strong as the family will be.
Yeah.
And the stronger the leadership is, the stronger the church will be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is confirming and strengthening the mission. The strength that you guys have.
Yeah, and a lot of it, it's the marriage analogy, I think, is a good one, but it's almost like a blended family marriage analogy. Right?
I'm already in marriage. Now you're asking me to go in.
Yeah. So it's like we're coming into a marriage with our kids and trying to make that, figure that out and how that works. Yeah, it's the Brady Bunch. Yeah. We need Alice.
That's a good name for a church.
What, the Brady Bunch?
Yeah. We need Alice.
Yeah, we need Alice. The church.
Sam the Butcher.
Yeah. We are running to the end of our time here, but we got maybe time for, one or two more questions or comments if we have any. I'd encourage, if you still have questions, concerns, talk to leadership. Let people know, walk through those things.
Yeah, really like Jackson was saying, not just if people come and talk to you, like your area of influence, people you're close to, do a systems check. Hey, how you doing? Hey, I didn't see you yesterday. Hey, you should have done it. This is what we got.
Yeah. And encourage people to come out tomorrow. Yeah. And we've got some stuff that we normally do during that time, and so I'm hoping that'll, encourage a little bit more people during the time. What's that?
Are we still doing
that? Yeah.
Okay. 6 o'clock tomorrow.
6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then one thing that we have to do and announce it here, we'll announce it tomorrow, with the 29th. Do you want to explain a little bit about your situation there?
We're going to, on the 29th, do another combined worship service. That's the date that we're supposed to announce the results of the merger vote. And so we want to do a couple of things. One, we wanted to, no matter what the vote is, we wanted our churches to spend time together to put God as exalted in that day and through this process of this vote, and come together to reassure that's, like I said, no matter what the vote is, that we still love each other, we're still pursuing God together and for the glory of the city, for the good of the city. Also, the problem was on the vote is I just had my taskings changed and I'm being sent overseas. That I originally wasn't supposed to go, but now I am. And so that was very hard because now we got the vote results and that I'm not going to be there. And so when I was talking to Shay about it, he graciously agreed to kind of lead that process for us. So I'm excited about the vote. I'm excited about that day together. I'm really not excited the fact that I'm going to be gone. It's completely unavoidable.
FaceTime.
What's that?
We'll FaceTime you in.
That's not really an option.
No, where I'm going, there's no FaceTime. No, it's.
But I mean, and to kind of close with this, I'd say this is another benefit of the merger because so tomorrow I'm actually preaching at Winchester Baptist Church, which they asked me to like a year ago for this date. So timing-wise, not the greatest for us either, but it was something I'd already committed to. And so Drew will be preaching here tomorrow. You'll be out in a couple weeks, and you've got, I think, Jim.
Friday. I'm leaving Friday.
So Jim's preaching for you then. But having other guys with the pastoral experience, multiple people with that experience to be able to lead churches when one has to be out is a big factor that neither has right now. James and I combined have 45 years of ministry experience, something like that.
Yeah.
And so there's some strengths, I think, to that. They kind of look forward to and say, all right, if merger happens, then you've got that combined strength there, that combined experience there too.
Yeah, this is for Mosaic folks. This is a perfect example that things would get going really well, and then I end up getting shipped out for some crazy thing, and we lose that momentum. We gain a lot of momentum, then we lose it, because a lot of times my job, 7 more years, and I can retire. But if you're watching the news, it's things aren't exactly good right now. Job security for me, bad for the church. So, but I'm thankful for this. This type of partnership makes things like that easier.
So we're going to close up so we can be courteous to the church that meets here on Saturdays. They'll probably start coming in here shortly, and then definitely by noon. So a couple of housekeeping things as we close up today. If you can just kind of look around your area, make sure you pick up any trash, get any of that kind of stuff up. Joe vacuumed and got stuff up, but bringing food up, things like that. I'm sure we've collected some. So if you could help us with that, just picking up stuff, throwing away stuff on the way out would be really helpful. Drew and Joe cleaned up downstairs for us during the meeting, so thank you guys for that and for taking care of that. And
it goes without saying, still needs to be said. We love you guys. We are overwhelmed. You guys would even want to go on this journey, take this kind of risk. It's huge. Really excited about launching out in the deep with our 2 churches becoming one. It's blows my mind. I'm so excited to see what God's going to do. It's just cool. It's cool.
And we did record this, so Gil, you're saying wish other people could have been here to see it, so they will be able to see it. I'll try to make sure that the questions can be heard and that kind of stuff, and have that up in the next few days. So. All right, well, I'll close this out in prayer, and then we'll be done. Thank you guys for being here. Father, thank you for this morning, and Lord, I'm glad that hearing is just encouraged by things that maybe we were reluctant to share for whatever reason, Lord. And so thank you for opening those up and helping us to be able to share, Lord. I thank you for just what you're doing in the lives of those in these churches, Lord. Thank you for what you want to do in Winchester. And Lord, we pray that you would use us to accomplish that mission that you have here. Lord, we know that you are able to bring revival and transform our city and community. And so, Lord, we just ask that we are walking with you in that. Lord, thank you again. It's in your name we pray, in the name of Jesus. Amen.